The van smells like copper and sweat. This is the first thing. The smell. The smell of a work van that has been driven 187 miles in 93-degree heat without air conditioning by a technician who has been pulling cable since 6:30 a.m. and who is sweating through a polyester uniform that the company provides and that the company launders once per week, and that the technician wears 5 days in a row, because the company provides 2 uniforms per technician, and 2 uniforms across 5 days means each uniform is worn 2.5 days before the laundry service collects it and returns it, and the cycle begins again. 2 uniforms, 5 days. The math produces a smell. The math produces the specific olfactory signature of a polyester shirt that has absorbed 2.5 days of human perspiration in a van without air conditioning in the rural South in July. The van smells like the math. The van is a 2017 Ford Transit. The van has 211,000 miles. The van has a ladder rack on the roof and a cable spool rack in the cargo area and a toolbox bolted to the floor behind the passenger seat and a partition between the cab and the cargo area, and no air conditioning. The air conditioning failed 14 months ago. The compressor seized. The mechanical failure that occurs in vehicle AC systems when the refrigerant leaks and the compressor runs dry and the compressor seizes and the repair costs $1,400, and the $1,400 was submitted on a work order and the work order was denied because the fleet budget for the fiscal quarter had been allocated and the allocation did not include the $1,400, and the $1,400 was deferred to the next quarter, and the next quarter deferred it to the following quarter, and the following quarter is now, and the compressor is still seized and the van has no air conditioning, and the technician drives 187 miles per day in 93-degree heat. With the windows down and the windows down at highway speed, produce a noise that is louder than the radio, and the noise means the technician cannot hear dispatch, and dispatch means the next job, and the next job means the route, and the route means the day, and the day is defined by the van, and the van has no air conditioning. The technician's name is Whit Delaney. He is 39 years old. He's a field installation technician for Ridgeline Communications, a regional telecommunications company that provides internet, phone, and cable television service to 340,000 residential and commercial customers across 4 states: Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and the Florida Panhandle. Whit works out of the Valdosta, Georgia depot. Whit drives a territory that covers Lowndes County, Lanier County, Berrien County, and the western half of Clinch County. 4 counties, 3,200 square miles, the rural and semi-rural geography of south-central Georgia, where the houses are far apart and the driveways are long and the cable runs from the road to the house through fields and woods, and the distance between the road and the house is the distance that the technician must bridge with copper and fiber. And the bridge is built by hand, 1 cable pull at a time, 187 miles per day. But this story is not about the cable. This story is about the van. This story is about what happens when a billion-dollar company asks a man to drive 187 miles a day in a vehicle without air conditioning in a state where the heat index reaches 109 degrees, and the man does it because the man needs the job and the job requires the van. And the van has no air conditioning and nobody has fixed it in 14 months. The CEO's name is Pollard Vickers. He is 61 years old. He is the founder and CEO of Ridgeline Communications. Ridgeline is his wire. He started the company 31 years ago with a single cable franchise in Moultrie, Georgia, a franchise he acquired from a retiring operator who had built a coaxial network serving 2,200 homes and who wanted out because the cable business was changing and the change required capital that the retiring operator didn't have, and that Pollard, at 30, did have, barely, from the sale of a small electrical contracting company that he'd built and sold and that produced enough capital to buy the Moultrie franchise and enough debt to make the purchase feel like a controlled fall, the kind of financial commitment that is either visionary or reckless and that is only distinguishable in retrospect. Pollard grew Ridgeline the way regional telecoms grow, One franchise at a time, one county at a time, the slow accumulation of cable systems and telephone switches and fiber routes that produces, after 31 years, a company that serves 340,000 customers and employs 2,300 people and generates $890 million in annual revenue, and that the founder still thinks of as 2,200 homes in Moultrie. Pollard's brother, Nash, was a lineman. Not a ridgeline lineman, an Alabama power lineman, the kind who climbs poles and strings wire in conditions that the general public encounters only during storms, and that linemen encounter daily. Nash climbed poles for 19 years. Nash fell from a pole in 2011, 32 feet, a wet Tuesday in March. The climbing gaff slipped on a creosote pole, and the safety harness held for the first 6 feet, and then the D-ring failed, and Nash fell the remaining 26 feet and landed on the access road beside the pole, and broke his pelvis and 3 vertebrae, and his right femur, and the career that had built his body broke the body. Nash spent 7 months in rehabilitation. Nash walks with a limp that he calls the weather report, because the limp worsens when the barometric pressure drops, which means Nash's body predicts rain with the accuracy of a meteorological instrument, the broken pelvis functioning as a barometer. The fracture site responding to pressure changes the way a healed bone responds to everything, with memory, with sensation, with the permanent record of the injury embedded in the calcium. Nash lives on disability. Nash is 58. Nash has been on disability for 14 years. The disability pays what disability pays, which is the amount that the government calculates as sufficient and that the recipient calculates as insufficient, and that the difference between sufficient and insufficient is the distance between the government's definition of need and the person's experience of need. The distance is large. Pollard built Ridgeline thinking about Nash, not consciously, not, I will build a telecommunications company because my brother fell from a pole, but with the ambient awareness that the people who build networks are people, that the bodies that climb poles and pull cable and drive vans are bodies that break, and that the breaking is not an externality, but a cost that someone pays, either the company or the worker, and that the company should pay it because the company receives the benefit of the body's labor and should bear the cost of the body's failure. The Technician Satisfaction Survey arrived 6 weeks ago. The survey was conducted by an outside firm, not Glassdoor, not anonymous reviews, a formal engagement survey with standardized questions and a 5-point scale and a comment section. The overall satisfaction score for field technicians, 1.9 out of 5, not 2.4, not 3.1, 1.9. The score that a workforce produces when the workforce has moved past dissatisfaction into something else, something that the survey firm described in their executive summary as disengagement approaching abandonment, the state in which workers continue to work not because they are engaged, but because they have not yet found the alternative, the inertial employment that exists between the decision to leave and the act of leaving, the dead zone of a workforce that is present but not there. The comments section contained 412 responses. The word van appeared in 186 of them. The word heat appeared in 203. The word AC appeared in 147. The word unsafe appeared in 89. Ride with a tech, said Dorsey Pruitt, the VP of Field Operations, a man who had been a cable installer for 6 years before moving into management and who still maintained his climbing certification and who understood from the harness up the difference between the network map on the screen and the network in the field. Ride with a tech for a week, not in Valdosta, in the counties, in the territory, in the van, in the heat. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this is the story of a billionaire who pulled cable for his own Telecom. And 187 miles in a van with no AC changed every fleet contract in his company. Monday, 6:15 a.m. The Valdosta Depot is on Industrial Boulevard, in the corridor between the interstate and the regional airport where the commercial buildings exist, the warehouses and the distributors, and the service depots that constitute the commercial anatomy of a small southern city. The depot is a metal building with 6 roll-up bay doors and a dispatch office and a parts cage and a parking lot where 31 service vans sit in rows. The white vans with the Ridgeline logo on the door and the ladder racks on the roof and the cable spools in the back. The fleet that serves 48,000 customers in the 4-county territory. Pollard arrives in work boots and a Ridgeline polo. His badge says, Grady Alderman, Tech 2, Installation. The cover, a lateral transfer from the Dothan, Alabama depot. Only Dorsey and the depot supervisor know. The morning lineup is at 6:30. The lineup is the daily briefing where the depot supervisor, a man named Cullen Yates, who's been supervising the Valdosta depot for 11 years, and who knows every road and every pole and every splice point in the 4-county territory the way a surgeon knows the anatomy of the body he operates on, distributes the day's work orders. The work orders are the day. Each technician receives between 6 and 9 work orders per shift. Installations, repairs, upgrades, disconnects, the service calls that constitute the daily output of a field operation. 6 to 9 jobs. Each job has a location. The locations are distributed across the territory. The territory is 3,200 square miles. The distribution of locations across the territory produces the route, the sequence of addresses that the technician must visit, in an order that minimizes driving time and maximizes job completion, and that the routing software optimizes, and that the road conditions and the weather and the customer availability and the complexity of the installation modify in real time. The constant adjustment of a plan that exists on the screen as a clean sequence and that exists in the field as a negotiation between the plan and the reality. The lineup room is air-conditioned. This is the detail that Pollard notices first. The lineup room, the small office at the front of the depot building, the room where the supervisor stands at the whiteboard and the technicians sit in folding chairs, and the AC unit in the window blows 68-degree air while the supervisor distributes the routes that will take the technicians into 97-degree heat in vans without air conditioning. The contrast, the 68-degree briefing room and the 112-degree van, is the daily transition that the technicians make, the thermodynamic cliff that the body falls off when it walks from the building to the van. The building has AC. The van does not. The building is where the company invests in climate. The van is where the company invests in cable. The people exist in both. The company cools one. Witt's route today, 9 jobs, 3 installations, 2 repairs, 1 upgrade, 2 disconnects, 1 trouble call. The jobs are spread across Lowndes and Lanner counties. The first job is in Hahira, 14 miles north. The last job is in Lakeland, 53 miles east. The route between all 9 jobs, plus the return to the depot, 187 miles, 187 miles, in the van, in July, without air conditioning. Ready? Witt says. He is standing beside the van, the 2017 Transit, 211,000 miles, ladder rack, cable spool, no AC. He is holding 2-gallon jugs of water. 2 gallons. He holds them up the way a person holds up essential equipment, the way a climber holds up a rope, the way a diver holds up a tank. The water is the equipment. The water is the thing that keeps the body functional in a van without air conditioning in 93-degree heat across 187 miles. I bring 2 gallons every day, Witt says. I drink both. Some days I need more. Some days I stop at a gas station and buy a 3rd gallon. The 3rd gallon costs $1.89. The 3rd gallon comes out of my pocket. The company provides a water cooler at the depot. The company does not provide water in the van. The van is where I spend 9 hours. The depot is where I spend 45 minutes. The water is at the depot. I am in the van. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to share it and subscribe to Untold Hearts, because sometimes the person who connects your Wi-Fi can't afford to fix his own AC. The first job. Hahira, a residential installation, new internet service, the standard package. The package that requires the technician to run a cable from the distribution tap on the utility pole to the side of the house and through the wall and to the modem and to configure the modem and to test the signal and to show the customer how to connect their devices and to complete the paperwork and to leave. The standard installation takes between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, depending on the distance from the pole to the house and the condition of the existing wiring and the accessibility of the attic or crawl space, and the number of devices the customer wants connected, and the number of questions the customer asks, and the questions are always more than the schedule accounts for, because the schedule accounts for a technical process, and the customer experiences a human interaction, and the human interaction includes questions that are not technical, but relational. Can you also look at why my bedroom TV is fuzzy? My neighbor's internet is faster. Why? Can you move the router to the other room? The questions extend the job. The extension compresses the route. The compression means the last job ends later. Later means more miles in the heat. The attic at the Hahira house is the first test. The attic is the space above the ceiling and below the roof where the cable must be routed from the exterior penetration to the interior outlet. The attic in a South Georgia house in July is not a space. It is a condition. The condition is heat. The attic temperature in a house with dark shingles and no ridge vent at 2 p.m. in July in South Georgia is approximately 140 degrees. 140 degrees. The human body's core temperature is 98.6. The threshold for heat stroke is a core temperature of 104. The attic is 140 degrees. The technician enters the attic, and the technician's body begins absorbing heat, and the body begins sweating, and the sweat begins evaporating, and the evaporation cools the body. But the cooling rate is less than the heating rate because the attic is 140 degrees and the body can only evaporate so fast, and the math, the thermodynamic math, the physics of heat transfer between a 140-degree environment and a 98.6-degree body. The math says, get out in 15 minutes. The 15 minutes is the window. The 15 minutes is the time in which the cable can be routed, and the drill can be operated, and the cable can be pulled, and the technician can descend before the body's cooling system is overwhelmed by the attic's heating system. Witt does it in 12 minutes. He has been doing it for 6 years. He knows the 12-minute attic, the specific practice sequence of motions that routes a cable through a residential attic in 12 minutes and that leaves 3 minutes of margin before the body says stop. The 12 minutes are a performance, the performance of a body that has learned to work in 140 degrees, the way a body learns to work in any extreme condition, not by tolerating it, but by racing it, by completing the work before the environment completes its assault on the body. He comes down from the attic. His face is red. His uniform is soaked through. The polyester dark with sweat from the collar to the belt line, the fabric plastered to the skin, the uniform functioning not as clothing, but as a second skin that traps heat against the first skin and that produces the visible total saturation of a body that has spent 12 minutes generating heat in a space that is 140 degrees. He drinks half a gallon of water standing in the customer's hallway. He drinks it the way the body drinks when the body has been in 140 degrees. Not sipping, not pacing, consuming, the urgent intake of a system that has been depleted and that the brain demands be replenished immediately, the override of social convention by biological necessity. He stands in the customer's hallway and he drinks, and the drinking is not polite and the drinking is not measured, and the customer watches and the customer understands that the man in her hallway has just performed labor in conditions that the customer's attic produced and that the customer did not know existed 12 feet above her ceiling. The customer, a woman in her 60s, offers him a glass of lemonade. He accepts. The lemonade is the kindness. The lemonade is the human transaction that occurs between a customer and a technician. When the customer sees the technician's face, and the face is the face of a person who has just spent 12 minutes in 140 degrees, and the customer recognizes the labor and responds with the lemonade. Does your van have AC? The customer asks. No, ma'am. In this heat? In this heat. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and tells us to keep making stories like this one. Back to the story. Day 3. The van. By day 3, Pollard understands the van. Not the van as a vehicle. The van as a workspace. The van as an office. The van as the environment in which a field technician spends 9 hours per day, and which defines the quality of the technician's working life, the way an office defines the quality of an office worker's working life. The van is the office. The office has no air conditioning. The dashboard thermometer reads 97 degrees outside. Inside the van, with the engine heat radiating through the firewall and the sun hitting the windshield and the metal roof absorbing and re-radiating the solar energy, the cab temperature is approximately 112 degrees. 112 degrees. The seats are vinyl. The vinyl absorbs and retains heat. The vinyl seat surface temperature is approximately 130 degrees. The technician sits on a 130-degree surface in a 112-degree cab for the driving segments of a 187-mile route. The segments between jobs, the 45 minutes to Lakeland, the 22 minutes to Adele, the 31 minutes to Ray City, the cumulative driving time that totals approximately 4 hours per day. 4 hours per day on a 130-degree vinyl seat in a 112-degree cab. The windows are down. The windows down at 65 miles per hour produce air movement, not cooling, movement. The air that enters the cab at 65 miles per hour is 97-degree air. The air does not cool. The air moves. The movement evaporates sweat, and the evaporation produces the sensation of cooling. But the sensation is partial. And the reality is that 97-degree air moving across a body that is 112 degrees from the cab and 130 degrees from the seat is performing triage, not treatment. The body is being managed. The body is not being cooled. What about the repair? Pollard asks. He asks about the AC, the $1,400 compressor, the work order that was submitted and denied and deferred again. Whit drives. He drives with one hand on the wheel and one hand holding the water jug, the jug positioned between his thighs for access, the continuous hydration that the heat requires and that the body demands and that the driving complicates, because the hydration requires drinking, and the drinking requires one hand, and the driving requires two hands, and the compromise is one hand on the wheel and one hand on the water. And the compromise is the adaptation that a body makes when the body is in a van without air conditioning in South Georgia in July. I submitted the work order January of last year. The compressor seized in May of the year before that. I drove the whole summer without AC. I submitted in January because I thought the new fiscal year would have budget. The work order was denied in February. Denied, not deferred, denied. The denial said, non-critical maintenance. Non-critical. The air conditioning in a vehicle that I drive 187 miles per day in Georgia in the summer is non-critical maintenance. Who denied it? Fleet management. The fleet budget is managed centrally, not by the depot, not by the territory. By corporate. The fleet manager in Atlanta looks at the vehicle list and the maintenance budget, and the maintenance budget is a number, and the number has a limit, and the limit means some repairs get approved and some repairs get denied, and the denial is based on a priority matrix, and the priority matrix ranks engine and transmission and brakes and tires above comfort systems, and AC is a comfort system. Comfort. The AC is classified as comfort. The AC in a vehicle that operates in a state where the heat index exceeds 100 degrees for 4 months of the year is classified as a comfort system the way a life jacket is classified as a comfort system on a sinking ship, technically, categorically, and absurdly. If Untold Hearts has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. A few dollars a month keeps these stories coming. Links are in the description. Now, back to the story. Day 4. The math. Between jobs, the drive from Adele to Nashville, Georgia, 41 miles on State Route 76, the 2-lane road that cuts through the pine flats and the pecan orchards and the wire grass that gives the region its name. Whit does the math. He does it without a napkin. He does it from memory, because the math is memorized. The math is the architecture of a life calculated and recalculated so many times that the numbers exist in the brain the way directions exist in the brain of a person who has driven the same route 1,000 times, automatically, structurally, without effort. $19.40 an hour, that's the rate, after 6 years. I started at $15.80 6 years ago when they hired me out of the technical college. I took the Ridgeline certification course, 8 weeks. I paid for it. $2,200. I paid $2,200 to learn how to install Ridgeline's product using Ridgeline's equipment on Ridgeline's network. The certification is Ridgeline specific. It doesn't transfer. If I leave Ridgeline, the certification is worthless. I paid $2,200 for a skill that only works here. I'm bonded to the company by a $2,200 certification that I can't use anywhere else. He calculates while he drives. The numbers are as automatic as the steering. $19.40 an hour. 8.5 paid hours per day. But I'm on the road from 6:15 to 4:30, 10 hours and 15 minutes. The 30 minutes at the depot before lineup, unpaid. The 30 minutes of paperwork and van cleanup after the last job, unpaid. The drive from the last job back to the depot, unpaid if I exceed my shift window. The shift window is 8.5 hours. If the route runs long, and the route runs long 3 days out of 5 because the routing software doesn't account for road construction or customer delays or the attic that takes 20 minutes instead of 12. If the route runs long, the hours after 8.5 are unpaid because the overtime requires pre-approval. And the pre-approval requires calling dispatch, and dispatch requires the supervisor, and the supervisor says manage your route. And managing your route means working faster, and working faster in a 140-degree attic means working unsafely. And working unsafely means risking the body that the company needs but doesn't maintain. What about the uniform? 2 uniforms. 2. I wear each one 2.5 days. The laundry service picks up on Tuesday. I get clean uniforms on Wednesday. By Friday, the uniform I've been wearing since Wednesday smells like, well, you've been in the van. You know what it smells like. The uniform is polyester. Polyester retains odor. Polyester in 97-degree heat retains odor the way a sponge retains water, completely, structurally, as a function of the material. I have asked for additional uniforms. The policy is 2 per technician. The policy was written by someone who has never worn a polyester shirt for 2.5 days in South Georgia in July. What about the van? The van is my office. I spend more time in this van than I spend in my apartment. I spend more time in this seat than I spend in my bed. The van has 211,000 miles. The van has no AC. The van has a driver's seat with the cushion compressed to the point where I'm sitting on the frame. I can feel the bolts through the foam. The passenger seat, your seat, is better because nobody sits in it. I've been sitting on this seat for 6 years, and the seat has been sitting on this frame for 7 years, and the combined 11 years of sitting have produced a seat that is functionally a metal bench with a polyester cover and the memory of foam. He takes a drink of water. The gallon jug is half empty. It is 11:40 a.m. The jug will be empty by 2. The second gallon is in the cargo area, behind the partition, inaccessible while driving. He will get the second gallon at the next stop. The hydration is managed the way the heat is managed, in intervals, in gaps, in the spaces between jobs when the body can access what the body needs instead of what the route allows. Whit's wife left 2 years ago, not because of the van, or maybe because of the van, because of the cumulative effect of the van, because a man who drives 187 miles a day in a 112-degree cab comes home depleted in a way that depletion doesn't capture. The word is empty. The man comes home empty. The heat has emptied him, emptied the energy and the patience and the capacity for the second shift that every parent works when the first shift ends, the shift at home where the children need attention and the house needs maintenance and the marriage needs presence and the presence requires energy. And the energy was left in the van, evaporated through the open window somewhere between Adele and Ray City. She took the younger one. Whit has the older one, Jessup. Jessup is 14. Jessup is the reason Whit drives 187 miles a day without air conditioning. Jessup is the reason the $19.40 matters, and the $19.40 is not enough, and the not enough is absorbed because the absorption is the cost of keeping Jessup in the apartment in Valdosta, and Jessup in the school in Valdosta, and Jessup fed and clothed and present in a life that his father maintains by driving a van that the company does not maintain. Jessup knows about the van. Jessup knows because Jessup has been in the van. On summer Saturdays when Whit picks up overtime shifts and Jessup rides along because the alternative is Jessup home alone, and Whit prefers Jessup in the passenger seat of a van without air conditioning to Jessup alone in an apartment for 9 hours. Jessup has felt the van. Jessup has felt the vinyl seat in the 112-degree cab and the wind through the open windows and the noise that the wind makes at highway speed. Jessup has said, "Dad, why doesn't the AC work?" And Whit has said, "They're going to fix it." And Jessup has said, "When?" And Whit has said, "Soon." And soon is 14 months ago, and soon is the answer that a father gives a 14-year-old when the real answer, the company classified air conditioning as non-critical, is not an answer that a 14-year-old should have to process about his father's working conditions. I asked about the seat too. Same answer, non-critical. The seat that I sit on for 9 hours a day, that is compressed through the foam to the frame, that produces the lower back pain that I treat with ibuprofen that I buy with my own money, the seat is non-critical. The AC is non-critical. The uniform is adequate. The water's at the depot. Everything that would make this job survivable is classified as either non-critical or someone else's problem. The van is the company's. The body in the van is mine. The company maintains the van to the minimum standard. The body maintains itself. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who works outside. Back to the story. Day 5. The reveal. Friday. The last job. A trouble call in Homerville, Clinch County, 57 miles from the depot. The trouble call is resolved. A corroded fitting on the exterior tap, the green oxidation that South Georgia humidity produces on copper fittings, the fitting replaced in 11 minutes with a compression connector and a cable end, and the signal restored and the customer satisfied and the paperwork completed, and the van pointed back toward Valdosta, 57 miles, the last drive of the week, the last 57 miles in a van without air conditioning. Pollard tells him in the depot parking lot. 4:20 p.m. The van is parked. The engine is off. The cab is still 109 degrees because the metal holds the heat the way memory holds the injury. Slowly releasing, gradually cooling, the thermal echo of a day that started at 6:15 and ended at 4:20 and covered 187 miles at an average cab temperature of 112 degrees. My name isn't Grady Alderman. My name is Pollard Vickers. I'm the CEO of Ridgeline. Whit is cleaning the van. The end-of-day cleanup, the cable scraps, the connector packages, the empty water jugs. He is holding a water jug. The empty gallon jug that was full at 6:15 and that was empty by 2 p.m., and that is the daily container of the body's survival in the van without air conditioning. He puts the jug down. You're the CEO. Yes. You sat in the passenger seat for 5 days. I sat in the passenger seat. In the van. In the van. With no AC. With no AC. And you pulled cable in the attic in Hahira. I pulled cable in the attic in Hahira. It was 140 degrees. It's always 140 degrees. Whit sits on the bumper of the van. The rear bumper, the metal step that the technician uses to access the cargo area, and that the technician also uses as a seat during the moments between work, the moments of rest that occur in the depot parking lot when the route is over and the body can stop. And the stopping is the relief that the body has been requesting since the first attic of the day. The survey said 1.9. I assume you saw the survey. I assume that's why you're here. 1.9 is not a number that a company produces when the company is doing something slightly wrong. 1.9 is the number that a company produces when the company has forgotten that the people in the vans are people. 1.9 is the van with no AC. 1.9 is the seat compressed to the frame. 1.9 is the 2 uniforms and the water at the depot and the non-critical work order and the $2,200 certification that bonds me to a company that won't fix my air conditioning. What do you need? Fix the vans, every van, not just the AC, the seats, the suspension, the things that a human body contacts for 9 hours a day. The van is my office. If your office chair was broken, someone would replace it by Tuesday. My seat has been broken for 3 years. Fix the vans because the vans are where your workforce lives, and the workforce is dying in the vans. Not dying dramatically, dying incrementally. The slow heat death of a body that spends 4 hours a day at 112 degrees because a compressor costs $1,400, and the $1,400 was non-critical. What else? Give us uniforms that work, not 2 polyester shirts for a South Georgia summer. Give us moisture-wicking fabric. Give us 4 shirts instead of 2. Give us a uniform that a person can wear in 97 degrees without smelling like the van by Wednesday. What else? Water, in the van, a mounted cooler, 5 gallons, refilled at the depot. I shouldn't have to buy a 3rd gallon at a gas station with my own money because the company provides water at the building where I spend 45 minutes and not in the vehicle where I spend 9 hours. What else? Pay me for the time, all of it, the 10 hours and 15 minutes, not the 8.5, the pre-lineup, the post-route, the drive back from the last job, the overtime that I work because the route runs long and that I don't report, because the reporting requires approval and the approval requires a supervisor who tells me to manage my route, pay for the time or reduce the route. 9 jobs and 187 miles in a van with no AC is too many jobs and too many miles, and the too many is the thing that produces the 1.9. The leadership meeting is Monday. Pollard walks in carrying a gallon water jug, empty. The label is peeling. The jug has been refilled and reused so many times that the plastic has clouded and the original brand is illegible. "This jug belongs to one of our technicians," he says. "He brings 2 of these to work every day. He drinks both by 2 p.m. When he needs more, he buys a 3rd gallon at a gas station with his own money. Our company provides water at the depot, the building where our technicians spend 45 minutes per day. Our technicians spend 9 hours in the van. The water's at the depot. The technician is in the van. We put the water in the wrong place." He sets the jug on the table. The van has no air conditioning. The compressor failed 14 months ago. The repair was denied as non-critical. The cab temperature exceeds 112 degrees. The technician sits on a seat that is compressed through the foam to the metal frame. The technician wears one of 2 polyester uniforms that are laundered once per week. The technician drives 187 miles per day through a territory where the heat index exceeds 100 degrees 4 months of the year. And we classified air conditioning as a comfort system. We classified the thing that prevents heat stroke in a metal box at highway speed as a comfort system. We classified survival as comfort. The CFO, a woman named Lacey Forbes, has the fleet budget on her screen. The fleet AC repairs across the entire system are estimated at $680,000. That's every van with a failed or degraded AC system. 147 vehicles out of 412. 147 vans with no AC, Pollard says. 147 technicians driving in metal boxes at 112 degrees. 147. That's not a maintenance backlog. That's a policy. We made a policy of cooking our people. The fleet budget was allocated according to the priority matrix, Lacey says. Engine, transmission, brakes, tires. Those are the categories that keep the vehicles operational. AC is classified. AC is reclassified as of today. The priority matrix was written by someone in this building. This building has air conditioning. This building is 71 degrees. The person who wrote the priority matrix that classified AC as non-critical wrote it in a 71-degree office on an ergonomic chair, while a technician sat on a metal frame in a 112-degree van driving 187 miles through South Georgia. The matrix was written in comfort about comfort, and the matrix decided that comfort was non-critical. The matrix is wrong. Comfort at 112 degrees isn't comfort. It's survival. Reclassify it. Fleet AC, every van with a failed or degraded system is repaired within 30 days. No exceptions, no deferrals, no non-critical classification. AC is reclassified from comfort to safety, the same category as brakes and tires and steering. The cost, $680,000. The cost of heat-related workers' comp claims in the previous 18 months, $430,000. 14 claims, 3 hospitalizations, 1 with lasting cardiac complications. The AC costs $250,000 more than the injuries. The AC prevents the injuries. Fleet seats. Every van seat past its service life is replaced. The replacement seat is ergonomic, designed for extended occupancy, the kind of seat that a delivery company or a rideshare fleet installs, because the companies that depend on drivers have learned that the seat is the infrastructure, and the infrastructure determines the body's condition at the end of the shift. Cost: $890 per seat, 312 vans requiring replacement, $278,000 total. Uniforms: 2 polyester shirts become 5 moisture-wicking shirts. The moisture-wicking fabric costs $8 more per shirt. The additional 3 shirts cost $24 per technician. Across 640 field technicians, $15,360, $15,000. The entire uniform upgrade costs less than the average heat-related workers' comp claim. The uniform upgrade costs less than the CEO's monthly car payment. Water. Every van gets a 5-gallon insulated cooler mounted in the cab. The cooler is refilled at the depot. The cost per cooler, $45. Across 412 vans, $18,540. The water in the van costs less than the water at the depot because the water in the van is used and the water at the depot is wasted. The water at the depot serves a building that technicians occupy for 45 minutes, and the water in the van serves a vehicle that technicians occupy for 9 hours, and the math of hydration is the math of location. Route optimization. Maximum 6 jobs per shift for routes exceeding 150 miles. The 9-job, 187-mile day becomes a 6-job, 140-mile day. The 3 jobs that are removed from Witt's route are distributed to a new technician, a new hire, a new van. The additional headcount that the route reduction requires and that the route reduction justifies, because the 9-job route produced overtime that wasn't paid and fatigue that wasn't managed and turnover that cost more than the new hire. Technician pay, $19.40 becomes $24.75. All time from van departure to van return is paid. The pre-lineup, the post-route, the drive back. The effective hourly rate rises because the actual hours are now the paid hours. The cost across 640 technicians, $7.2 million. The technician turnover rate is 63%. The turnover cost, recruiting, training, certification, lost productivity, the $2,200 certification that the company requires and that the technician pays for, is $4.8 million annually. The net cost of the raise, offset by the retention improvement the company projects at 12 months, $2.4 million. And the certification, Ridgeline now pays for it. The $2,200 that bonded the technician to the company by debt now bonds the technician to the company by investment. The company invests in the technician. The technician stays. One more thing. Pollard holds up the jug. This goes in the lobby at every depot, under glass. With the label, "A technician bought this with his own money because we put the water in the wrong place. The water is in the van now." And every van gets inspected monthly, not for cable and not for tools, for the seat, for the AC, for the cooler, for the conditions that a human body encounters for 9 hours a day. The van is inspected for the person, not the equipment. The person was always the equipment we should have been maintaining. 3 months later. The AC works. This is the first thing. The AC in van 1247, Witt's van, the 2017 Transit with 211,000 miles, has a new compressor. The compressor was installed 4 days after the leadership meeting. The compressor was the first of 147 repairs, the first van in the fleet to receive what the fleet should have received 14 months ago. The AC blows cold. The cab temperature at highway speed is 72 degrees. The vinyl seat, the new seat, the ergonomic replacement with actual foam and lumbar support, is a surface that a body can sit on for 9 hours without feeling the bolts through the frame. The van is the same van. The van feels like a different van. The difference is $2,290, $1,400 for the compressor and $890 for the seat, and the $2,290 is the distance between a workspace and a punishment. Whit still brings water. He brings 1 gallon now instead of 2. Not because the cooler doesn't work, the cooler works, the 5-gallon insulated cooler mounted behind the passenger seat that is refilled at the depot every morning and that provides cold water for 9 hours. But because the 1 gallon is the habit, the adaptation that 6 years of heat produced and that the body retains even when the condition has changed. The adaptation is the scar. The cooler is the treatment. The gallon is the memory of the wound. The uniforms arrived in week 3. 5 shirts. Moisture wicking. The fabric breathes. The fabric releases heat instead of retaining it. The fabric does not smell like the van by Wednesday. Whit wears a clean shirt every day. A clean shirt every day is a sentence that should not need to be written about a worker at a billion-dollar company. But the sentence needed to be written because the sentence was not true until the uniforms arrived, and the uniforms arrived because the CEO sat in the van for 5 days in 2 polyester shirts and understood what 2 polyester shirts mean in 97-degree heat. The route is 6 jobs now. 6 jobs, 142 miles. The 3 jobs that were removed from Whit's route are covered by a new hire, a 24-year-old named Tully Odom, fresh out of the technical college, riding a route that starts at 7 and ends at 3:30 in a van with air conditioning and a 5-gallon cooler and a seat with foam and 5 moisture-wicking shirts. Tully doesn't know the before. Tully knows the after. Tully thinks this is how the company has always operated. Whit knows it isn't. Whit knows the before because the before was 6 years of his body in a van without air conditioning, driving 187 miles on a seat compressed to the frame, drinking 2 gallons of water and buying a third at a gas station because the company put the water in the wrong place. The technician satisfaction score at 90 days. 1.9 has risen to 3.4. The largest single-period increase in the company's history. The word van still appears in the comments, but the comments have changed. The new comments say, they fixed the vans. 3 words. They fixed the vans. The 3 words contain the entire story. The before and the after, the non-critical and the critical, the comfort system and the safety system, the water at the depot and the water in the van, the 2 shirts and the 5 shirts, the 9 jobs and the 6 jobs, the seat with bolts and the seat with foam. They fixed the vans. The 3 most important words in the survey. Whit keeps the empty jug, the clouded plastic gallon jug with the peeling label. He keeps it on the dashboard, not in the way, off to the side, visible. The jug is the before. The cooler is the after. The jug is the reminder that the water was in the wrong place, and the body was in the wrong temperature, and the seat was in the wrong condition, and the company was in the wrong priority. The jug is empty. The cooler is full. The van has AC. The route is 6 jobs. The shirt is clean. Jessup rode along last Saturday. Overtime shift. Whit still picks them up, the extra money that a single father calculates into the monthly budget the way a baker calculates flour into the recipe as a necessary ingredient. Jessup sat in the passenger seat. The new passenger seat in the van with the new compressor, the air blowing cold, the cooler full behind his seat. Dad, Jessup said, they fixed the AC. They fixed the AC. When? 3 months ago. You said soon. You said soon 14 months ago. I know. What happened? Someone sat in the van. Jessup didn't ask who. Jessup is 14, and 14-year-olds accept answers that contain enough truth to satisfy the question without requiring the full architecture of the truth. Someone sat in the van. Someone felt the heat. Someone fixed the AC. The sequence makes sense to a 14-year-old in the way that cause and effect makes sense. The cause was the sitting, the effect was the fixing, and the 14 years between the sitting and the fixing was the part that Jessup doesn't need to know yet, the part about the priority matrix and the non-critical classification and the fleet budget and the 147 vans and the billion-dollar company that forgot that the people in the vans were people. What Jessup noticed was the seat. This seat is different, he said. And Whit said, yes, the seat is different, and Jessup said, I can't feel the bolts. And Whit said, no, you can't feel the bolts. And that was the conversation, the entire conversation about an $890 seat that Jessup summarized in 5 words. I can't feel the bolts. The 5 words contained the before and the after. The bolts were the before. The foam is the after. The 14-year-old noticed. The cable still runs from the pole to the house. The cable is still copper and fiber. The cable still carries the signal that connects the customer to the internet, and the internet to the world, and the world to the customer's living room. The cable is the product. Wit is the person who makes the product reach the customer. The product travels through copper. The person travels through the van. The company finally fixed the van. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that the person who connects your internet deserves air conditioning and a seat with foam, share it. Subscribe to Untold Hearts for more stories about the people inside the service vans. Tell us in the comments, have you ever worked in heat that nobody else had to feel?